All ready to go? Perfect. Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call to order the County Planning Commission of May 22nd, 2023. Will you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Members Borja.
Here.
Corona Sabagnano.
Here.
And Rathel.
Here.
And we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Will you all please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will you make the announcements this evening?
Yes. The county fosters public engagement during the meeting and encourages public participation, civility, and use of courteous language. The county does not condone the use of profanity, vulgar language, gestures, or other inappropriate behavior, including personal attacks or threats directed towards any meeting participant. Excuse me. In-person public comments will be taken first. To make a public comment, please complete a speaker request form and hand it to the clerk. The chairperson will call your name when it's your turn to make a comment. If you plan to make a teleconference public comment, you will be kept on mute until the chairperson calls for teleconference public comment. The clerk will unmute you when it's your turn, and you may begin your public comment. You may also send a written comment to boardclerk@saccounty.gov, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record.
Thank you so much. And will you please call item number 1?
So for item number 1, we have a time extension located at 6840 Santa Juanita Avenue, approximately 1,524 feet north of the Central Avenue and Santa Juanita Avenue intersection in the Orangevale community, and the environmental document is an addendum to prior environmental impact report.
Thank you so much. And this item is on our non-contested portion of the agenda.
Yeah, good evening. Jessica Brandt with Planning and Environmental Review. We do have the project manager, Christian Balthazar, here, as well as the applicant. Christian can provide a presentation if you would like.
Thanks so much. I'll just check in with the other commissioners. Would you like a presentation this evening on this item? All right, sounds good. We'll just go ahead and skip the presentation since it's non-contested. Happy to take any comments from the applicant if they would like, but not necessary if they... All right. Do we have any public comment this evening? We do not. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comments. And I'm happy to move the staff recommendation on item number 1.
Second.
All right, will you please call the roll?
And members Borja.
Yes.
Corona Sabagnano.
Yes.
And Rathel.
Yes.
And the motion carries.
All right, that'll conclude item number 1. Will you please call, we are going to switch up the agenda a little bit this evening. We're going to move to item number 3 next.
And, I'm sorry, bear with me just one moment, please. And for item number 3, we have the 2023-24 5-year capital improvement plan review, and the environmental document is that it is not applicable.
Do you have the presentation?
Yes. Metro, can you pull up the presentation for item number 3, please?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Rathel and members of the Commission. My name is Young Choi from Long Range Division of Planning and Environmental Review. This presentation is for our capital improvement plan for our next 5 years. So capital improvement plan, or CIP, it identifies the capital improvement projects over the next 5 years for the county. This is set by the County Code Section 21, Chapter 15. The purpose of this review is to determine if the projects are consistent with the general plan and address any issues before our board approval. At this time, we are not evaluating for the specific merits, cost, or environmental impact of the project, as they will be reviewed individual basis. So the quick process of our CIP review is that our board first reviews the capital improvement plan and refer to the Planning Commission to find the general plan finding. This was done in April 11th at the board meeting. And today, our Planning Commission, you, are determining the consistency of the CIP and forwarding the findings back to the board. And in June, board will receive the findings and finally adopt the CIP. The projects have been reviewed. They are in attachments. We are only reviewing the projects that have previously not reviewed, so only the new projects are reviewed this year. A majority were improvements to an existing facility and infrastructure upgrades. We have 8 project categories this time: airport, county buildings and capital construction, May 3rd Community Campus, regional parks, libraries, transportation, waste management and recycling, water supply from the Water Resource Department. As I mentioned, the attachment includes our general plan policy analysis for all capital improvement plan for this time, including a project description. Staff has found that all projects are consistent with the general plan, or they do not have any pertinent general plan policy to reference. It is staff recommendation to adopt the resolution finding that the projects listed in the 5-year capital improvement plan of the County of Sacramento fiscal year 2023 and 24 and the budget are consistent and adopt the policy of the county's general plan, and direct the county executive to report back to the Board of Supervisors with the Planning Commission's finding. And today I am here joined by our senior planner, Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Bettis from our Office of Budget and Debt Management as well. And that concludes my presentation, and we're here to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Choi. Questions for staff this evening?
Sorry, I just have a clarifying question. Because as I'm looking at the staff report, we're looking at these projects to evaluate them for consistency to the general plan. But then you just mentioned, and I think it was in the report too, that some of them don't have a reference to the general plan. So how does that work, I guess?
So for those projects, we don't have any general plan policy that meets the project merit. So for those, we just don't have anything to review against. So therefore, we say that we have no concept to reference to. A lot of those projects are upgrading a lot of the AC units or air chillers as a replacement of older units to newer units, where we don't necessarily have a general plan policy for those types of projects.
Okay, and for those projects, I guess, is this list, is the Board of Supervisors going to prioritize it, and those that aren't, I guess, have a reference to the general plan? Where do they fall on the list?
I don't have the answer for you.
Okay.
I'm going to ask if Mr. Bettis has an answer for the prioritization of the capital improvement plan.
Colin Bettis, the County Debt Officer. Thank you very much. To address that question, I would have to say that the prioritization is primarily driven by the various departments that are recommending the projects come forward. And so when we're looking at this, any of those projects would be considered funded and within the CIP within the next 5 years. Many of them are actually in the outer years. As we're looking at the next 4 to 5 years, the departments are planning out what they can afford and fund within that next time period. So the prioritization really comes from the departments themselves.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a couple other questions, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you for the staff for putting this together. We've had prior experience and really the amount of work that's being done on the CIP and understand the prioritization. Taking my planning commissioner hat aside, I had a little bit of trouble trying to find not necessarily consistency, but like synergy with, let's just say, the active transportation plan that we had vetted about 4 or 5 months ago, that had a calling out there that there should be a CIP conclusion there, and then also having kind of representing the Vineyard area, some of the North Vineyard transportation plan that was also supposed to be part of the CIP. We had talked about in meetings past where certain improvements in which developers would be paying into should be relating into the CIP, and I'm looking at the transportation addendum, and I can probably track at least 3 that I can directly lead to the CIP here. So I was wondering from the staff, could you help me maybe figure out where I can kind of track where those projects are supposed to be coming from and how they're kind of finding their lines in queue of the CIP. And then the second question is, alongside the active transportation plans that we were supposed to prioritize this year, where in these CIPs are y'all considering perhaps applying for SACOG or let's say SB1 matching funds on the CIP? Because those ones would be the financially constrained projects that we should be, as a county, going for competitive grants. So a little bit of a two-part question, but Mr. Choi, if you can assist me with that, that'd be great. Thank you. Sure.
I think I would have to defer the question to Mr. Smith for the first portion, and then the second portion, my initial answer would be that would be dependent on the department for the project basis, and we would more than happy to relay that message to the following department. And I'm going to see if Mr. Bettis or Smith has anything else to add onto the question number 2 as well.
So Todd Smith, Sacramento County Planning Director. To the first part of your question, Commissioner Borja, it's possible that some of those projects live within, for example, the North Vineyard Station specific plan CIP, as opposed to the county-wide CIP, which is what this is. So they may be projects that the county is delivering in that community that would live in the county CIP, and other transportation projects would live in the specific plan CIP.
Thank you.
Colin Bettis, the county debt officer. I also have a little bit to add to that. The request this year is just for new and newly funded projects. So there may be other projects that are also included within the capital improvement plan overall that's going before the board in June that will have projects that came before you previously for review that are projects in the Vineyard area. One that comes to my mind is crossing at Waterman, thank you very much. And that one has been in the CIP for a number of years. And they do actually, when the full project goes before the board, it identifies funding sources. For example, the North Vineyard Station CFD or the impact fee programs from that area. So those are in the CIP as well. And I'm sorry, but was there another question that you had?
Yeah, so if I'm not mistaken, sir, so these are all shovel-ready new projects that were not previously.
Yes, and it just that triggered the other question that you had is SACOG funding. I have heard from the Department of Transportation that they've recently been awarded some grant funding for some additional projects. Now, I don't know which projects those are specifically, but those would be coming back to the board as an amendment to the CIP, just due to the timing of when those projects are coming online, when they're becoming known, and when funding is also known as available.
Okay, understood. So if I was to look at just kind of prioritizing the transportation page, these are all funded already some way, somehow, even though they're in the outer years.
Correct.
And so if a community member were to say, hey, Stockton Boulevard Complete Streets project, I know RT has been wanting to do something with bus rapid transit, like would it be a factually true statement to say that, hey, as a county, we have allocated certain CIP funds for this type of improvement, therefore, hey,
yes,
regionally we can kind of work on this?
In addition to that, as the funding becomes more certain, it may bring it forward into earlier on in the CIP, but that's our review each year with the plan as it goes before the board.
Understood. Okay, so I appreciate that, sir. I think there's a little bit of intricacy here, and I'm glad that thankful to the staff that chair on the transportation. It runs a whole gamut of, there's complete streets, there's safe routes to schools, there's paving. I would imagine there's probably some sort of slurry seal and some other things that the DOT would want here. So I guess if I was to coordinate with the county DOT, would this be like a good starting point to say, hey, these are the projects where we find county match now, or should I go, or should the stakeholders take a look at county budget to say this is for this year, this is what we're going to be going for? Or maybe a combination of both?
I think a combination of both to answer it best, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any other questions for staff this evening? All right. Thank you, Mr. Choi. Looks like our staff recommendation is to adopt the resolution that was attached and direct the county executive to report back to the Board of Supervisors.
Like to make that motion.
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
And there are no public comments for this item this evening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so will you please call the roll?
And Commissioners Borja?
Yes.
Corona Sabiñano?
Yes.
And Rethel?
Yes.
And the motion does carry.
Thank you so much. All right, with that, we'll move on to the contested portion of the agenda. Will you please call item number 2?
Yes, item number 2, excuse me, is a development plan review, special development permit and design review located at 3945 48th Avenue on the north side of the intersection of 48th Avenue and Wesley Avenue within the Sacramento Municipal Utility District Substation Neighborhood Preservation Area of the South Sacramento community. And the environmental document is a mitigated negative declaration.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Orieros, Project Manager for the Fan Apartments at Sierra Vista Park project. The project's located at 3945 48th Avenue at the north side of the intersection of 48th Avenue and Wesley Avenue. It's currently vacant, however, does have several gum and pine trees on site and is adjacent to a drainage channel tributary to Morrison Creek. It's also adjacent to high voltage SMUD transmission lines traverse the site running east to west, approximately 150 feet north of the property's frontage along the right-of-way. The site's zoned RD20 and is within the SMUD substation neighborhood preservation area. It is important to note that the NPA triggers the development plan review being requested and provides the added finding that the proposed development will not create adverse noise, visual, air quality, health, or safety impacts beyond what is currently existing. Going the wrong way there, sorry. Okay, so some site history. In 1910, the parcel was initially subdivided as part of the Sierra Vista Park subdivision. Between 1910 and 1937, county imagery indicates the establishment of ag-res development on the site. In the late 1950s, the SMUD substation was established approximately 180 feet west of the site. And in 1961, the Morrison Creek Drainage Channel and Highway 99 bisected the parent parcel. Between 1985 and 1995, the ag-res residence and accompanying accessory structures were demolished. And from 1995 on to present, the site has been vacant. So requested entitlements. A development plan review to construct a 26-unit multifamily residential development on a RD20 zone property within the SMUD SPA. The project includes 22 one-bedroom units and 4 two-bedroom units. A special development permit to allow the proposed project to deviate from the perimeter landscaping requirement is also requested. The standard for that is 7 feet wide, and the project proposes an instance of a 5-foot planter at the rear of the proposed development, kind of at the interface of the public outdoor space and Morrison Creek. A design review is also included within the entitlement package to determine substantial compliance with the Sacramento countywide design guidelines. So here we have the site plan. The site is gated. It contains 3 buildings that are 2 stories in height. Building 1 contains 10 units, which is that would be the eastern one. Building 2 is 12 units, and building 3 is 4 units. And it is important to note that the buildings 2 and 3 do provide 3 ADA accessible units. Here we have the landscape plan. So there is that 100-foot SMUD easement that traverses the property in the parking area kind of to the north, and that precludes buildings and the planting of trees. So there have been bushes planted, but that is the reasoning for the lack of trees in that one instance. Here we have typical elevations of the 3 buildings, largely monochromatic and contemporary in design. And here are some typical floor plans. It is also important to note that each unit provides an in-unit washer and dryer, as well as meets the 40 square foot requirement for private outdoor space in the form of either a balcony or patio. The 80 cubic square foot storage space requirement is also met by the project. So an initial study and mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project and released on October 18th, 2022. Impacts discussed include air quality, noise, hydrology, water quality, biological resources, hazards and hazardous materials, and greenhouse gas emissions, and concluded that the project would result in a less than significant impact with the implementation of mitigation measures. It's also important to note that during the review period of the environmental document, 2 agency comment letters were received, one from the Department of Toxic Substances Control and the other from SMUD. A response to comments was prepared and is included as part of the report package. So advisory recommendations. The South Sacramento CPAC met on March 16th of 2022 and recommends that the Planning Commission approve the requested entitlement package. The dissenting member did have the concern of pollution exposure from proximity to Highway 99, and the CPAC did request that staff meet with the Air District, applicant team, landscape architect to look at including additional landscaping to kind of reduce pollution exposure. And so the applicant subsequently revised the landscape plan based on those comments that arose out of that meeting. There was also the concern that the project was not fully subsidized or affordable or providing any affordable below market rate units. Staff at the CPAC meeting did explain that while we do have incentives for below market rate units, we cannot require that as part of the project. And the Design Review Advisory Committee did also meet on March 10th, 2022, and recommends that the Planning Commission find the project in substantial compliance with the design guidelines, noting the kind of complexities of the site and the remaining consistency with the countywide design guidelines. So project analysis. The project is consistent with the general plan, community plan, and zoning code as conditioned. The findings for the requested special development permit can be made, and the project is consistent with the intent of the SMUD substation neighborhood preservation area. The project would result in the creation of additional housing within the community as called for by the housing element of the general plan. It's consistent with surrounding zoning and land uses and was supported by both the CPAC and DRAC. And with that, staff recommends approval and recommends that the Planning Commission take the following actions. Determine that the environmental analysis prepared pursuant to CEQA is adequate and complete. Adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Approve a development plan review subject to findings and conditions. Approve the special development permit. And find the project in substantial compliance with the countywide design guidelines. With that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Seiss Wagner of the applicant team is also in attendance.
Thank you so much. Questions for staff this evening?
Just a quick question, sir. Sure. For the neighborhood preservation area, the NPA for the substation, is that just because of the T-lines that are crossing through?
So about 180 feet west of the site, there's a kind of substation. And so that's really intended to just allow an extra level of look to see how that interface would work between the substation. And back in the day, there was 220 feet from the property line of that substation was kind of the buffer. So it just kind of comes into this subject parcel by 14 feet, but that was enough to trigger it. And so there also is, if the project were to be immediately adjacent to that, the NPA required a 25-foot landscape buffer, but since this isn't adjacent to that substation directly, that was not required as part of the development plan.
Understood. So I believe that, or is it correct to say that SMUD is not then building or at least expanding that substation or putting any more T-lines on where that parking lot, I guess, would be?
They have not indicated that, and they did review the project very closely and provided their conditions and the comment letter. So
awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one quick question. So I see that there's 26 units and 40 car parking stalls. Are any of those EV?
You know, that's a good question. That is generally determined by the, okay, so there's spots 35 and 36 are proposed to be EV.
So 2 out of the 40.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Jessica Brandt. Just to add on to that, there is additional requirement for EV-ready parking spaces for multifamily housing now through the Green Building Code? Yeah? Okay. And so even if it's not on the plans, they will be required to provide what they need to provide under that code.
Any other questions for staff this evening? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'll invite the applicant down to address the commission, if you'd like to. And if this is part of your team, if you are going to be answering any questions about the project, we'll get you both sworn in at the same time.
Vice Wagner Architect.
All right. Go ahead and get him sworn in.
And if I could get you sworn in, please. You assume the position. Thank you. And the appropriate response is I do. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give this commission is the truth, so help you God? And if you do not swear, do you so affirm?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and if you can, again, please state your name and make the statement that I have been sworn.
Vice Wagner Architect.
And I have been sworn.
I have been sworn.
Thank you, sir.
David did a beautiful job of presenting the project, so I really don't need to add anything to that. I just wanted to comment on the EV requirement.
Could you move a little
it is,
closer?
it
Can you
is-
move a little closer to the microphone, please, so we can hear you?
Let me raise it a little bit.
This one?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. I just wanted to comment that the Green Code, Section 4106.4.2 is on the cover sheet of the drawings, and the EV parking has been provided on the site relative to the Green Code.
All right, any other questions for the applicant team this evening? All right, we'll move on to public comment.
And we have no public comments.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll go ahead and close public comment and move on to deliberation.
Happy to move the staff report forward and make the motion.
All right, I have a motion for staff recommendation, and I'll second. Any further discussion?
Just one thing. I think I would have wanted to see there be some affordable units in this project, but I understand that sometimes that doesn't pencil out, but I just wanted to say that for the record.
And I think if I understood correctly, this was listed, and it did meet the requirements that we currently had planned for it, that it was listed as possibly a moderate, if I understood that from the staff report. It was intended to be moderate income. It wasn't ever intended to be low income.
Yes, that's correct. There were 27 units anticipated for the site, or 26 units, and that's what they're proposing.
Okay, so we have no net loss of planned affordable units in the county.
That's correct.
All right, any other comments before I call for a vote? All right, please call the roll.
Okay, Commissioners Borja,
Yes.
Corona Sabagnano,
Yes.
and Rethel.
Yes.
And the motion carries with those members present.
All right, that concludes item number 3. We will move on to the planning director's report.
I don't have much to report. I think Jessica might be going over in the scheduling matters, the upcoming agenda items.
Sounds good.
Do I want to move to scheduling?
Yes, we'll move on to item number 5.
All right. So we do have a little bit of an update. The next meeting will be June 12th. I believe, from what I understand, we should have all members. At least I have not heard otherwise. We do still have 4 items that have been submitted for that meeting. The Blossom Ridge subdivision was moved to the June 26th meeting, so that will not be part of the June 12th meeting. And don't believe any of the others, I don't anticipate any of the others being particularly controversial. But of course, you never know. So June 12th, you'll have 4. And then it looks like the June 26th meeting, we have 5 items on the agenda, including that Blossom Ridge item. And I don't know if we talked about the 26th, if anyone believes they may be absent that day. No? Okay.
June 12th is a little tentative for me. I'll be coming back in town that day, but I do intend to be here.
That's great. And that's it for scheduling items for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there are, for item number 6, no further public comments.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and adjourn at 6:07 p.m. Have a great night, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you so much.